Dear graduates, my Lord Abbot asked me to preach at your graduation Mass, and I address you in the first place, but with you I address the Lord Abbot and the Reverend Fathers and the faculty of the ITI and the students and your family and friends and all of our guests. At one of the very first ITI graduations, a certain person who is present here today compared studying at the ITI to climbing a mountain. When you climb a mountain, for example, when the SG climbs the Hochreichert in Wasserberg, you can see it from afar off in all its majestic beauty and wonder. And you desire to climb it. But then the ascent begins, and you no longer see the mountain as a whole, you see merely the rocks and dust in front of your nose. And you feel not amazement at the beauty of the mountain, but weariness at the difficulty of climbing. But then you reach the peak, at least most of you. And you take on the perspective of the mountain itself, looking down at the vast expanse of the world below, from one end to the other, and the wonder returns with greater intensity. Something similar can happen studying here at the ITI. Before you began, perhaps you had a desire to learn the most important truths about yourself, about the world, and above all, about God. The truth that you sought appeared as a distant and beautiful mountain, an object of desire. But then, in the midst of your studies, struggling through difficult arguments on seemingly dry and abstract questions, distinguishing the five senses of before, for instance, or the four kinds of causes, or trying to understand how predestination and grace fit together with free will, or seeing why happiness is contemplation, or puzzling over Aristotle's unfunny definition of comedy, not to mention cringing at Luigi Felici's unfunny puns. Perhaps the beauty of the mountain of truth was less apparent, and the rocks and dust of the laborious climb filled your vision. But now on your graduation day, you can look out from the peak that you have reached and see something of the beauty of the whole again, with greater intensity. It is customary in the Church to commemorate Our Lady on Saturdays. And today, we're celebrating the Mass of Our Lady's Seat of Wisdom. In looking at Our Lady, we can see the whole, as if concentrated in a lens or reflected in a mirror. She who is the seat of the divine wisdom, who gives birth to the one who created her, sums up the whole of the truth from the beginning to the end. The scriptural texts for the Mass of the Blessed Virgin Mary's Seat of Wisdom do not refer explicitly and directly to Our Lady. The reading that we just heard refers to her in prophetic language as the wisdom of God. And the Gospel refers to that other Mary, Mary of Bethany, and to her sister Martha, who respectively mirror something of the contemplative heart and the loving care of Mary of Nazareth. If the reading shows us something of how God looks at Mary, the Gospel shows us something of how Mary looks at God. In considering each of these, we can see something of the great mountain of truth that you have been climbing. In the reading, we heard divine wisdom speak, "The Lord possessed me in the beginning of his ways, before he made anything from the beginning. The mountains with their huge bulk had not as yet been established, Before the hills I was brought forth. How can these words be applied to Our Lady? Here, your knowledge of the 5 senses of before is very helpful. Our Lady is not before the foundation of the hills in the order of time. She was born long after the hills were established. But she is before them in the order of causality. What does that mean? God is infinitely happy. He possesses the shoreless ocean of his own goodness in the most interior and spiritual way, by knowing himself as truth, as the spiritual good. Happiness in God is contemplation of his truth. Gazing at the truth that he is, God is happy. But God is so happy that he wishes to communicate this good, this divine truth to others. The whole of creation, the depths of the sea and the huge bulk of the mountains and the numberless array of the stars, all of these communicate something of the divine goodness, speak something of the divine truth. God willed these many creatures, principally for the sake of the spiritual creatures whom he set in their midst. The human beings made in his image, who are capable of sharing in his happiness by knowledge and love. And God wills human beings not only in general, but also in particular. Each one by name, beginning with the one who is a divine person, but who also has a human nature with Christ. But then, in the second place, the most perfect, pure creature, the Blessed Virgin Mary, his favorite daughter, for whom he willed that the eternal Word, the full expression of the divine wisdom, fully one with the truth whom he speaks, should himself come forth into the world as a man. Our Lady, as the most perfect of pure creatures, most tender in love, most receptive in contemplation, is the greatest manifestation of the divine goodness and truth. Mary is therefore the pattern, the exemplar cause, according to which the whole of creation was made. I was set up from eternity, and of old, before the earth was made. These words we just heard in the reading apply to her, because from all eternity she was in the mind of God as the pattern according to which he established the world. She is an extrinsic formal cause of the universe. Here your knowledge of the 4 causes comes into play. But she is not only a formal cause, but also a final cause. God created the world and everything in it for the sake of those he had elected to share in his happiness. First of all, for the sake of Christ, and then for the sake of her who is closest to Christ, for his mother, and then for all the elect whom he chose to be members of Christ's body. This is the purpose of creation and of grace. So here your knowledge of how predestination and grace fit together with free will comes into play. Mary becomes Mother of God by her free act of acceptance of the word. Fiat mihi secundum verbum tuum. The incarnation was foreordained from all eternity, but it takes place through the most free and conscious of human acts. Mary is the only mother who knew her son before she conceived him. Therefore, she is not only the seat of wisdom, but she can herself be called wisdom, since she knows and brings forth the first principle of all things. I was with him, forming all things and was delighted every day, playing before him at all times, playing in the world. God looks upon Mary with infinite love and joy as his most dear daughter, playing before him the game of divine wisdom. It is, we could say, a game of ring around the rosy, in which the end is the beginning, and the beginning is the end. God himself becomes the son of his daughter. She becomes the beginning of the beginning, the mother of the Creator, and her beginning is her final end. In the Gospel, we see how Mary looks at God and at us. In Mary of Bethany, we see the contemplative heart of Mary of Nazareth reflected. Her delight is to sit at the foot of God and listen to the divine truth in which happiness consists. To be fully united to the one whom she loves is to know him. And in her sister Martha, we see reflected Mary of Nazareth's love for us. What is divided in Martha and Mary of Bethany is united in Mary of Nazareth. With a mother's care, she tends to us. With the ordering power of divine wisdom, she brings out the divine image in us. Dear graduates, some of you will devote yourselves principally to the contemplative life, to looking at God and hearing his word. And some of you will devote yourselves principally to the active life, to ordering human communities in the light of divine wisdom. All of you should unite something of both, taking into account the priority of the one over the other. On this mountain climb of your lives, always look to Mary as your aid. She will renew in you the deep look of contemplation and the ardor of love in action. When you are discouraged by the sorrows of this world, the dryness of your thoughts, the unruliness of your passions, the ugliness of human sin, and the obstacles that malice and stupidity put in the way of those who strive for good, then look to Our Lady, seat of wisdom, she who suffered so much, but now is in perfect joy. She whose soul is all beauty, all beautiful, all pure, all wise, and whose gentle intercession can overcome any obstacle. Let her be your consolation on the way. Amen.